It's Create Day! For my first two projects, I'm going to be using these thrifted items, a wine bottle and this candlestick holder. I'm starting off with Maui sand chalk paint, and I'm mixing in baking soda to give it more of a texture. So I end up using about half and half baking soda with the paint. And then I'm going to go ahead and give this 2 coats, and I brush it on, but then I go in and do a stippling effect to bring out that texture. For the wine bottle, I just did a really light coat of flat white spray paint to give it a good base for the paint to stick to. And this will also get a couple of coats of the Maui sand chalk paint. Next, I'm going in with 2 shades of gray, a light and a medium color. And starting with the darker one, I'm just going to dry brush over all those details, and then I will go in and repeat the same dry brushing process with the lighter gray. So now I'm going to use this color called Deep Gray. It's a darker gray. I needed some more contrast, so I'm using that to go in between those raised areas to add a little more dimension to this. And then I'm adding another shade of gray called Stormy Gray. I like to layer. When it comes to painting, I just like to do lots of different shades and just blend everything together. So I'm just kind of adding that to where I did the other color as well. And now I'm going to mix some of the black with the lightest gray so that I can go in all those little grooves and really darken the little grooves up quite a bit. And then I just added it to all those recessed areas. Not a lot, just a little bit to really make some shadows in those recessed areas. So next I wanted to create kind of a mossy look in some of the grooves. So I'm mixing the olive green with the gray and some black. I really just wanted this to look very old and weathered, like a cement pillar that belongs in a graveyard that's 100 years old. So I go ahead and add them into the little grooves on the bottom, as well as in between the little raised areas on the upper part of the candlestick holder. And now with my ash gray, I'm going to take a sea sponge and just get a little bit of paint on there, dab it off, and then just do a sponging technique over this to just highlight some more of that texture. I told you I like doing layers. And now with the wine bottle, I'm just sponging on that original Maui sand color. It will add a little texture and make sure that there's no brush lines. And now we're on to the final dry brush of the candlestick holder with just the regular light gray. Very dry brush, just highlighting the raised areas. This turned out so good. It really does look like aged, weathered stone. So now I want to do some fun stuff here. I've got these little skeletons I picked up from Spirit. They are somewhat flexible, and I thought, well, it'd be fun to glue these on here like they're climbing this tower or whatever it is that's in the graveyard. So I wanted to dress them up a little bit first, so I went ahead and gave them all a coat of the white chalk paint. And while we're waiting for them to dry, I thought, well, let's add some moss to this. So um, just some of my green reindeer type moss, a little bit of hot glue, and just putting it in random areas around that where I think that the moss would have grown. And now I'm just applying some Mod Podge. It's the matte finish over the moss just to seal it on there. Now I'm going to use the color linen to just add a little bit of color variation to my little skeletons. I'm mostly just putting it on like the highlights of the rib cage and, and I'm not doing full coverage. I'm just adding it to the already white just to kind of dirty them up a little bit. So now I just figure out how I want to position them under this candlestick holder. And then I'm able to just glue them on with hot glue. So I've got his hands attached, and now I want to get his little feet on there like he's actually standing on that little ledge. So with just a little bit of manipulation, I'm able to. They're so tiny. There wasn't much surface area to work with on the glue, but I got it on there. So he looks like he's the one that climbed to the top. So now I'm just attaching the second one facing outward. And then I attach the guy at the bottom that's just chilling out and letting the other guys do the work. I'm using my dark brown paint called Espresso. It's a little watered down. And with a fine tip brush, I'm just going over and dabbing off any excess in the creases in between those raised areas that go around the upper part. It's just another part of the process of making this look old and weathered. And then I just apply some of that to the skeletons also to just add a little more dirt and grime. They were a little bit too neat and tidy. Then I decided to add a little bit of that same mixture to the green moss so that it didn't look quite so fresh. So then I wanted just a little bit more of a highlight over the raised areas. I mixed my white with the lightest gray because I didn't want it to be just straight white so that I could do one more dry brushing. It's almost like these things just never end. I'm never like, oh, this is perfect. Um, so anyway, one more dry brushing. Now for the candle, the only one I had was this purple. It's kind of a fat candle. I would actually like to use more of a tapered candle, but this is what I had. So I trimmed it off. It was a little bit too tall. And then I shaved it down at the end so that it would fit into the little opening at the top of the candlestick holder. And then I just wiped it down and did a coat of black acrylic paint. This worked pretty good. When I went to do the second coat, it started to drag off that first coat. So I'm not sure what the problem there was, but anyway, I just covered it the best I could. And now I'm using my glue gun to make drips. And then after those were dry, I went ahead and did another coat of the black acrylic paint. So now with my gray paint, I'm just going to go in and dry brush over all those drips and the candle, and that will be the final addition to this project. Stay tuned to see the whole thing in the final reveal. So now for this bottle, I wanted to use a skull, and I had these ones that were about the right size, but it was a full skull. So I went ahead and just cut off as much of the back of that as I could to try and get a good fit. But it needed something to adhere to since it was hollow. So I just cut this piece of foam and hot glued that in there so that it gave me something to glue it to the bottle. And I was able to go ahead and attach that with hot glue. There were still a few gaps, but I'm going to be able to fill those in. So I have this kind of a trim piece from this IOD mold that I thought would be really nice to wrap around this to kind of like frame in the little skeleton head. So putting cornstarch in the mold and my air dry clay, I went ahead and made two of those so that I can have one on the top and one on the bottom. I absolutely love these IOD molds. They are so detailed and just give you such a good result. They're just, look at that. They're just beautiful. So I'm going to glue those on with my Aleene's Turbo Tacky Glue. So now here's where I go to fill in the gaps using hot glue. I don't have a detail hot glue gun, so it was really hard to get that tip down in there and not get the hot glue where I didn't want it. Um, but in the end, it turned out okay. So now I picked out all these little critters to put on there, and I spray painted the back sides of them hoping that it would, well, just help camouflage any colors, but also that they would maybe stick better. And so now I'm going in with chalk paint over the tops of them to give everybody just a base coat of black. And then with my tacky glue, I have this neat little chipboard piece that I want to put up on the neck of the bottle. And once that was dry, I wanted to add this little gemstone into the center. So I just go ahead and apply that with a little dot of hot glue. Okay, so now it's time to attach the critters. And this is the same type of snake that gave me trouble in a previous video I did. And I thought, oh, well, I've, added paint and all this stuff. Maybe it'll stick with the hot glue this time. But of course it did not. I don't know what it is about these snakes. So anyway, I finally realized that I'm just going to have to go super glue. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. So much frustration, and all I needed was super glue. But anyway, I'm just showing way too much of me hot gluing this down, and I don't know why, because he does not stick. And so I glue down some of the other bugs. Some of them stuck, some of them didn't. So I do have to go back and remedy all of this with super glue. See, there he is. Wants no part of this. But the super glue did the job. I had zero problems after that. Then I picked this cork to put on the top of the bottle, and I didn't mess with anything else. I went straight super glue with that. Learned my lesson. So now I just want to wrap some twine around the neck of this bottle, and I think I go part way up onto the cork. But anyway, I just start it with a little bit of hot glue, and then wrap it around, and just keep wrapping and wrapping until I get to where I want to be. I just intermittently add little drops of hot glue to keep it, see how it's not really going together. Like, I actually had a couple of gaps that I have to fill in afterwards. And this is where I'm just filling in the areas that string just didn't go together quite like I wanted it to. And now I'm just burning off the fuzzies. And so now I'm just going to go in and paint all our new little friends with the original color, Maui Sand. Once that was dry, I wanted to try using, the cheap spider web stuff you can get at the Halloween store, at the grocery store, wherever. So it would look like a spider had entangled all these other critters in his web. But I haven't worked with this like this before, and I just got it a little too thick in some areas, and it blocked out some of the details that I would have liked it to show. But anyway, I just tacked it down with some hot glue in various spots. And then I can go over and kind of seal that all in with my matte Mod Podge. So this is the Mod Podge. And once that dries, I go ahead and paint the entire bottle with the original color of Maui sand. I found out that I needed to water down the paint though, because the brush with the thick chalk paint, it would catch on those webs and kind of drag them and move them. So you just want to have a spray bottle handy to keep your paint watered down. So now with my dark brown espresso, I'm just going in with a small brush to get kind of underneath the insects and just in any little dark recessed areas to add a little bit of aging. I'm using my Spanish copper rub and buff to add some color and sheen to all the critters. And now this is my big spider that's going to be like the king spider of the bottle. So I'm just adding the rub and buff to him as well. Time for some metallic silver paint. I'm going to just dry brush this. I've got a round brush that I load up with paint, but then I wipe most of it off so that I can just go in and highlight the bugs, the tops of the bugs, the skull. I'm showing you that's how much paint is on there before I wipe it off, and then what it looks like after I wipe it off, like there's very little paint on there. And so then I can highlight the webs and just everything on this to just kind of bring it all to life. And you'll still be able to see the aging that I've done. You'll be able to see the Spanish copper rub and buff, but it'll all blend together. And now it's time to super glue our star of the show. I get his body on there and then I attach his legs. And look at that. There he is. For my last project, I'm using this foam pumpkin I got off of Amazon. And then I have some little vampire teeth. So I needed to trim these way down. I cut them in half first, and then I trimmed as much off the back as I could because I'm just going to carve an opening into the pumpkin to attach the teeth to. So here I'm just marking where the teeth are going to be, so I'll know approximately where to make my cuts with my soldering iron. And then I figure out where I want my eyes to go, and I mark around those as well. And then it's time to head out to the garage and do some burning. Okay, so I am going to, with my little soldering tool, this is the only tip I can use. I used it so much that I can't even get it off of here anymore to use other tips. So work with what you've got. I'm going to try to carve out some little openings for the teeth and then for the eyes. And I apologize for the lighting. It's nighttime here. I'm doing the best I can. So I'm just checking to see if I'm on the right track here. That's looking better. And so now I do need to burn out this area here. Don't want to screw up my ability for those to lodge in there though, so I don't know, let's see what I can do. This styrofoam does not burn down like the stuff I get, like the insulation foam. There's something weird going on here, so I hope I don't get cancer. I have the fan going, but man, this is like some funky stuff going down here. So I think for now, yeah, there's gonna have to be a little something in there for this to actually glue to. So I'm not gonna take any more out. That one's good. That one's almost good. Oh, and then our eyeballs. Look at that. Got a real pretty mouth. Now that I have all my little openings burned out, it's just time to add some black acrylic paint. While that dries, I want to work on my little skeleton hand I got from Spirit Halloween. I'm adding my Rust-Oleum antiquing glaze. Just brush it on, wipe off the excess, and it will leave a really nice aged effect in all those recessed areas. I decided that I wanted to add some more grooves and holes and whatnot into this pumpkin. So I went back out to the garage and I just carved down into all the little recessed grooves in the pumpkin, and then I added some random holes so I can like add some worms or something to make it more grody. And so now I'm just going to dry brush a mixture of white toned down with just a little bit of the brown to just give a little more character to the skeleton hand. I didn't like just the brown tone. I wanted it to look like there were some spots that were more bone colored. And now with my nutmeg, I'm going to give this pumpkin a base coat. I ended up doing 2 coats of the color nutmeg. When that was dry, I went ahead and hot glued in the teeth and the eyeballs. Those both in there. I kind of wished I had left one out and had like gross things coming out of the eye instead, but maybe next time. With my air dry clay, I'm just rolling out little ropes to put around to form lips around the teeth. There's a slight gap at the top and the bottom where they didn't like fit completely into that foam. So I, cover that and make it look like kind of more like a mouth. And once I have it the way I want it, I go ahead and just use my tacky glue to put that down on there. And then I'm able to just go around and shape it with a little clay tool that I have. And I'm just trying to get to where the very outer edges blend into that pumpkin so there isn't like a big ridge. I just want it to all blend and look like they're supposed to be there. Then I just took some little pieces of the clay and rolled up these little kind of almost like a maggot or a worm shape. And then I'm just painting them the color sandstone. And now I'm mixing up two colors, sheepskin and honeycomb, to make a kind of an off-white yellowish color for the whites of the eyeballs and the teeth. Before I paint the teeth, though, I want to take a watered down black paint and go in between the teeth and then kind of smudge it off and smudge it around. So there'll be an underlying dark, decayed suggestion. And then I can go over it with that sheepskin and honeycomb mixture. And I paint it on, I wipe it off. It's just a matter of trying to blend it so that I don't completely cover up the black, but once again, back and forth process of just layering colors onto these teeth. And so now for these little worm things, I wanted to paint some dark brown lines around them so that they would actually look like something. I still don't think they really look like, I don't know what they look like, but anyway, that's all I'm doing. And then I cover them with a gloss. So now I'm just going in with another color on the teeth. This is a pale brown. And again, just wiping it on, or brushing it on, and then wiping it off until I get the look I want. Now I'm adding some dark brown, so I get my brush wet first. And then wipe off the excess and just go in and add a little bit more around the gum line and in between the teeth to just kind of, grody things up a little bit. So now with the original color nutmeg, I'm just going in and brushing over the clay that I did. And then this is the triple thick glaze I use on my little worms. I wanted to paint a dark green into the larger holes and whatnot that I have on there. But this ended up not being dark enough for me, so I ended up mixing that with the black to get a darker color to put in there. And I use that color to go around the insides of the eyes as well. Then I just touch up the eyeballs. And paint the stem. I'm using the dark brown espresso on the stem. And now it's time to get some orange colors on this guy. So I'm going over with this base coat color again because I want that to be still wet when I add these orange colors. I've got 3 different oranges. And while that base coat is still wet, I'm going in with the darkest orange. And I just keep blending. I can go back and bring in some more of the base color to blend, and I have my spray bottle handy to keep my brush nice and wet. And here I go to the lighter orange and blend that in as well. I just want to keep working on the area that is currently wet with paint. I continue that in sections, and here's how it's looking so far. I do a little touch up around the eyes, and then I go in with my lightest orange and a dry brush to just do some highlighting. Just a little final touch up on the eyes, and we are ready to add some worms. So I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue these guys in there. Just for what it's worth, this air dry clay, when you have it rolled out in a little tiny piece like this, it's really fragile. I broke one, that one right there on the eyeball. I ended up breaking it and I had to re-glue it. So you're not going to want to have these sticking out of something that people are handling. And now I'm just doing a little dry brushing with, I think that's sandstone, I'm not sure, just on that stem. And now I wanted to add a little moss to this as well. So I'm just picking random holes and hot gluing that in there. Added some around the eyeballs as well. And the last step was a clear coat of spray paint in the matte finish. And now it's time for the final reveal. Well, that's it for this video. I'm currently in the process of creating some of my larger props for my haunt build this year. So if you're into that sort of thing, be on the lookout for those videos coming up soon. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, I hope I've inspired you to go create something. See you next time.